To be continued. Good afternoon, dear viewers. This is the Maya QA YouTube channel. Today, our guest is the opposition figure in exile, Denis Elisevich. Good afternoon, Denis. Hello, Denis. May I? A personal question. How did the first day of the war start for you? What were your emotions? Where were you? I was at home. I knew about a day in advance, at least 12 hours before, that the war would start. I was at home, basically in my usual state, and everything happened while I was at home. It was, of course, an unpleasant moment, to put it mildly. There was panic in the city. I didn't go anywhere, I didn't leave, but I saw what was happening on the roads and around. What to assume, I don't even know. It was Kiev, right? Kiev. And can we trace the change in people's attitudes toward the war from the beginning and then later as you saw it? Well, at first the authorities were really scared, and we ended up almost in the same boat as the authorities. All together, everyone for each other, and people basically behaved the same way. And the first, well, probably 4 to 6 months of the war in general, well, nobody cared about what language you spoke, what religion you had, or about the draft office. That question just didn't come up at all. Well, I realized that attacks on freedom of speech started happening somewhere around the summer of 2022. I felt it very clearly, plus I got some signals, certain events started happening, and everything immediately became clear. Well, as we can see, I wasn't wrong. By the way, back then I made a video, one of the videos, it's still on the channel, I haven't deleted it. I remember people getting upset with me back then, asking why I was exaggerating and what Stalin had to do with it. Well, I kind of sensed everything that was going to happen, but to be honest with you, I even underestimated it. I mean, I definitely didn't think it would be like this. And the feeling started 12 hours before. Was it your personal analysis or communication? No. It was specific information. Specific information. So right now, this weekend, the rallies across Europe, I think you've seen the videos took place. What is your attitude towards them? Well, it's complete idiocy. I watched a few videos, these people, what they're standing for. And you know, there's a characteristic feature. People told me, no, it's just like that on the internet. In real life, it's different. But it's exactly the same as on the internet. That's how I feel about all of this. Yes, it's the same there. Aggression is common, whether against Russians or their own people. Sometimes there's even more aggression toward their own. Absolutely crazy eyes, a crazy look, not understanding what's happening in the world, what's happening in the country. Why am I even at this rally? What's going on in Ukraine? Where should we go? What should we do? It's just like, I'm Ukrainian, that's it. Everyone should, excuse me, bend over, something like that. Everyone should adore me. Something should happen so that we're always in the front row. They can't even put it into words themselves. They can't put it into words themselves. But when the question comes up, why aren't you at the front? If you're so militant, then you're pro-Russian, or you're like this, or you're like that. The peculiarity is they never answer. Instead, they instantly swear, dismiss you, and act aggressively. There's no constructiveness. Of course, you can be emotional. I'm not against that. But constructiveness, will you answer the question? And there are no answers. But this question, mind you, it even confuses people who are close to the authorities. For example, we know about the Kashilov video and various officials. This very question, they still don't have a clear answer to it. Everyone starts to dodge. You can see it. It's obvious on camera. It's immediately noticeable. Why haven't they come up with an answer? There can't be an answer to this. Recently, I had what you might call a debate with one of the regime's so-called servants. He's supposedly kind of an opposition figure, but really just a cardboard one, a former ex-minister, Riva, you know, I saw him. He has an air defense background, just for the record, air defense education, draft age, and he says he went to the military enlistment office 5 times, but they won't take him. Well, you get it, right? He came up with that as his answer, but honestly, it's probably better to say nothing than something that stupid. Kashevoy, actually, at the very beginning, Kashevoy said, what am I going to do at the front? I'm overweight. Some sniper will take me out in an hour. What good will I do for the country? Volodymyr Klitschko was the most honest. I want to tell you, I'm not their supporter. By the way, I don't know his answer. Yes, in the first days of the war, he said, I want to live for Ukraine, but to die for it, I prefer to live for Ukraine. You know, that's a very good, very honest answer. And I can say I don't judge those who got scared, those who are not ready to give their lives. I have done a lot for Ukraine, everything that was in my power before the war, during the war, and now. But to say that I am ready to die, to give my life, no. Hand on my heart, no. because I understand perfectly well they will kill me and Yermak will be driving around Kiev with his security. I'm not ready for that. By the way, honestly, I said this at the beginning too. I already said it on my channel at the very start of the war. In the first weeks, I said, I'm telling you honestly, I'm not ready to give my life. And when there aren't others in the trench, like in Israel, where everyone is really together, I won't put my family at risk. Who would lose their only breadwinner while these others get richer? Well, who turned out to be right? On the first day, and maybe the second, I felt differently. My blood was boiling. But then I immediately remembered how I was at Maidan. Well, back then I was 25, naive, youthful. You could say that with a stretch, but then I remember my feelings when people were killed. What happened after Maidan? I stopped myself right away. Stop, stop, stop. We've already been through this, and now it's even more serious. And I see again that I was right. This is also an element of propaganda that we're fighting now, and then we'll come back and restore order. That's a complete deception. Yes, my blood was boiling. I thought I'd go, and then I'd come back and deal with those who stayed behind, like Yermak and so on. It works, it doesn't work, but repeating that mantra was pointless and kept happening. By the way, if we're talking about publicity and the media, that narrative was around even back during the anti-terrorist operation days. So the guys will come back from the front, and now they're talking about those embezzlers. Yeah, by the way, the guys come back hungry. They need to feed their families too, and they end up working as security for those same embezzlers. Some go into crime, some, of course, and stay in the army to serve, but that's working for the state. But there will be people settling scores. I'm not encouraging that at all. I'm not saying that soldiers or military people who clearly don't like the authorities should come to Bankova, kill everyone, establish a military regime, a military junta. I'm not for that. I'm for democratic elections and a normal path. That's another matter. Well, okay, we'll talk more about this later, I'm sure, regarding what's happening with this. That's fine. I saw your post, also not without some criticism about the level of English, but I have a question regarding learning. You are someone who is in the field. Tell me, please, in the time that a person has been an ambassador, should they have already learned to read from a paper? My situation is very different. All my business and 90% of my communication is on my laptop. So whether you want to or not, you end up using a translator or artificial intelligence. I don't have much practice in real life, but I have enough of a level to get by. It's nothing special. I'm not going to say that I speak 10 times better than Zaluzhny, but my question wasn't about Zaluzhny. As a diplomat, he could definitely improve it, not in terms of speaking fluently. When reading, you shouldn't make basic mistakes, and it's clear when someone lacks confidence. I don't judge him for that. He's over 50, and for his generation and the stress, that's just how it is. I'm not judging him or anyone. I'm talking about something else. I can very clearly tell the difference between a person who is intelligent and competent but just speaks a language poorly and someone who simply has nothing to say and doesn't understand what they're talking about. And it's obvious that someone else wrote it for them. I saw this with Klitschko, I saw this with Yanukovych. I have to say, Yanukovych actually showed the most noticeable progress, because by the end he spoke quite well, even in Ukrainian, and he knew some economic parameters. Klitschko, to this day, I don't understand anything. Same with Zelensky, I don't understand anything. These are people who will be in politics for 20 or 30 years, but we still won't understand anything. Why is there no idea? He doesn't know where he's going or what he's doing. His only goal is to keep his current position and maybe get elected to a higher one. In Klitschko's case, that's all, and I can see it literally in 5 minutes. A person who has an idea, who knows what to do, who can lead people, he's passionate, he might not speak well, but you can see in his eyes, in his terminology, that he knows what he's talking about. That's very important. These people don't know what they're talking about. He's just repeating, I'll say it again, some narratives, some talking points that his assistants or employers gave him. So in economic terms, when a person understands the entire business plan from creation to implementation, he can navigate any point and he won't stumble. Yes, that's what I'm talking about, yes. So what do you think about the figures of Zaluzhny and Budanov who are just starting out now? Zaluzhny's statements are loud like revelations about assassination attempts and so on, and Budanov is being mentioned more and more. They're warming us up to new candidates and not giving us a choice. They're warming us up to new candidates. These people, without a doubt, can sit and think that they're candidates, that they have real ratings. But I can tell people, first of all these ratings are manipulative. And it's a clan. Some clan might decide, tomorrow they'll put me there. If some clan needs it, I'll work with them. It doesn't work like someone is actually measuring some real ratings. They create a narrative, and today the narrative is like this. I won't tell people who to vote for under these conditions, because any option is a mistake. You understand? Any option is a mistake. I'm only for democratic elections. But at the same time, if life raises the question that Zelensky needs to be replaced, then of course we'll have to enter into situational alliances. Because continuing with Zelensky for sure is guaranteed doom. Even a small hope is still doom. But I don't support any of the above mentioned people. I'm not considering Budanov in politics now, since he's focused on a specific task and not involved in internal affairs or making political statements. Recently, he has been part of peace negotiations, and I fully support his efforts there. Do you have any hope for the Geneva negotiations that will take place in the coming days? I have hope for negotiations in general. Any stage of negotiations is still important, but let's just say it's definitely good, not bad. They are taking place, and more are announced in the future. I'm very glad about this, and the more negotiations there are in a short period of time, the better. Today is the 23rd, and we're talking. The next negotiations are on the 26th, I think excellent. Negotiations are good, and we're looking forward to them. Moreover, after those talks, they announced an exchange, but it didn't happen. I hope they'll agree. These are important things, at least you can see them right away. Yes, from Zelensky's latest statements, what surprised you the most? No, he can't surprise me anymore. I watched his interview on the BBC. You could make a montage like a cabinet of curiosities. The lines there are incredible. Yes, I don't even want to discuss anymore that he's saying something wrong. When discussing Zelensky now, it's not about right or wrong. I have a question. A person who holds such a position at such a time should, how can I put it, be mentally and psychologically aware. In other words, you can't put Ukraine at risk and get into a measuring contest with someone else. You can't bring personal issues into the conflict in Ukraine. If you have a conflict or personal dislike with a leader and bring it into Ukraine, that's the wrong approach. And in this interview, he said, yes, we have corruption, but it's not more than in Europe. And we are different from Russians. We talk about it. That's actually the only thing that makes us different from Russians. They don't admit they have corruption, but we do. And then about other European countries, that's just shocking. Which European countries are you talking about? Did the friends of the prime minister or president steal $112 million? And that's just in one case, but there are hundreds of such cases. So it just seemed to me, even that leftist, globalist BBC trash, even that experienced journalist guy there, even he, I think, kind of choked. You could say, that's too much, too much. And the phrase, my people, is also used regularly. Yes, well, that's a bad habit, a bad one, yes. I wonder where this will lead. But could it be that he understands that some bets have already been placed, maybe some kind of peace, those elections that rumors keep circulating about, that this is some kind of end, and that's why he's acting this way? To be continued. Partly yes, but you heard him, he said it quite clearly, something like, if Western partners want to remove me, let them say so, they want to remove me, or hold elections. He didn't say the US, he didn't say Europe, he didn't say, for example, Trump, just Western partners. From this, can we assume that it's not only Trump who wants to remove Zelensky, but also someone in Europe? And I don't think it's Macron or Merz, but other forces. Nevertheless, we are now seeing in the globalist press, you just mentioned Zaluzhny, I think it was The Guardian or the Associated Press. Both of those came out this week, both under the globalists, both of them anti-Zelensky rhetoric. If we go back a year and a half, 2, 3, or 4 years ago, the globalist media always supported him. A week ago, Simon Schuster was in The Atlantic, and he revealed things that, as ordinary people here like to say, would make your hair stand on end. I don't know. People are also demanding, I read the comments, people ask, why is it Trump this and Trump that? Well, for Trump, Ukraine can't be more important than it is for some citizen of Ukraine. Our people hate Trump, they don't like Trump, while in Israel they are grateful to Trump. They called on the streets for Trump to help, they hung banners, they went out into the streets with signs. It's the same in Iran, under those conditions, and there the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are very dangerous, they paint on the walls, Trump help, Trump this, Trump thank you, online, but here we have hatred, insults, and here they know it very well. Yes, you were talking about the Israeli army. One time I was traveling by train going from Tel Aviv, and there was a girl sitting next to me. She had an M16 and the magazine was in her bag. Well, it really looks like that. Of course, yes, there are soldiers on the streets, there are soldiers at the airport, but you see, it's not like that there. She was coming back after a week of training, going home for the weekend, but she had her weapon with her because for them, maybe once a year or every few years. Mandatory service, yes, and weapons are allowed, but it's very hard to use that as a reference. It's been like that from the very beginning, from the very start, and there the country is truly for itself. And what kind of country do we have? Just look at the former Minister of Energy, Halushchenko. He talks about how his lackeys talk, or companions, whatever you want to call them. He's held the position for 4 years. It's time to end it. So the minister sits there stealing for 4 years, stealing huge amounts of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, and thinks, damn, I've been here too long. I'm already pretty well set up. And since I've gotten away with it so far, it's time to go somewhere. They say he wants to leave as an ambassador somewhere to make things easier for himself, to go as an ambassador. Yeah, that's how it is. Why? Because that's a diplomatic passport. Again, you're in the loop, you have connections, you already have some schemes, you know who to connect with. It's just, they're parasites, real parasites, but people don't want to understand this. People don't want to, well, that's how it is. Our ambassador to Slovenia is a former Ukrainian defense minister. Reznikov? No, that's still the old Taran. Taran, yes. Reznikov is nowhere. Yeah, this one's from way back. Yes, I got it. Internal conflicts, Nabu with the SBU, more and more corruption, and it seems like nothing surprises anyone anymore. Well, this just proves once again that everything is really bad. This war or confrontation will continue. We have to look at it from the perspective that this is not normal. Overall, what's happening is not normal. And here I fully support Nabu. I fully support Nabu because, for me, it's wild to imagine that a special service can protect the authorities. It's wild to imagine that a special service can cover up. Well, that's a fact. I just decided it's wild to me. I'm not going to accept that a special service covers up corruption. They are hunting for people like that. I mean, they are going after my family. They wiretapped a woman who said the war would last until the last Ukrainian. They used this in court and opened a criminal case against her. Really, just for that phrase, they accused her of justifying Russian aggression with a fake expert opinion. Thank God the judge dismissed it and actually acquitted this woman. They don't realize Russians are hiring people via Telegram to carry out the Lviv explosion. Maybe that's where their focus should be. It was working on Ukraine's security. No, some are working, some are fighting, working on Ukraine's security, but there are some who either combine both or serve the president's office. Tomorrow there'll be a new president's office and they'll serve it too. It's just business for them. Today, by the way, Nabu caught an SBU officer there. Did you see? Another bribe taker, a $68,000 bribe. Yes, and for what? For leaving the country, for an exemption. So, war is business. Vityuk, a top SBU cybersecurity officer, was involved with millions of dollars. But at the same time, I clearly remember how they put me on the list, my TikTok account on the enemy list. They put me right there together with Solovyov. And this is the SBU cyber guy, so he puts me on that list, while at the same time he's stealing millions. Can you imagine that? And then you see people like Elisevich are the ones blamed. And part of society, I have to admit, eats this up, this propaganda. Well, the latest news from Mykolaiv is that police cars parked at a non-working gas station, and after the explosion, 7 people were injured. Another terrorist attack. Well, I heard, yes, before our broadcast, that's how they classify it, and Zelensky announced it. I won't comment. The situation with tariffs, Trump and tariffs, who will win? Denis? No one will win. It's a very complicated story. You know about the decision of the American court. Trump has workarounds. He will do it. He will stick to his guns. That's all. I think Ukrainians need to think about Ukraine. This, of course, affects the situation to some extent, since it was an element of pressure and still is an element of pressure on other countries, which can also be pressured to end the war in Ukraine. Well, Trump has a serious team. They will find a way out just as an option, as a distraction from Ukraine. There was also an interesting comment that the court's decision from Trump, it included a curse word, and from Vance that it was an unlawful decision. Well, of course, it used to be considered unacceptable to say such things about the court in America. Well, he didn't actually say that. What Vance said was absolutely politically correct. Journalists took Trump's words out of context. Someone claimed he said that, but there's no video. Political correctness has resulted in what we see in the world today. That's a dangerous statement then. What do we need? What kind of government do we need? No, we need democracy. I mean that the world has changed, and since there's been a shift in one direction, to balance things out, we need a shift in the other direction. That's usually how it works, and that's what's happening now. Trump's diplomacy. Witkoff and Kushner are not diplomats, they're businessmen. Today, life requires such decisions. The diplomats couldn't handle it, they allowed the war to happen, and they can't end it. I'm not even discussing Ukraine because the Ukrainian diplomats are coming out. Others like, what's his name, Ogrisko, or yeah, and that guy, damn, Kislitsia, Sibia, they're all sitting there like puffed up turkeys. That's it. Give us weapons, give us weapons. When in history have diplomats always promoted peace? It's the military saying, give us weapons, let's fight. But now our military are speaking for peace, while diplomats are saying, give us weapons. And religious leaders are saying, give us weapons, let's fight. It's just complete madness from all sides. And Denis, and in Mexico, the situation in Mexico, it quickly will be put out, settled, or maybe a big conflict. The conflict is already big. It happened after about 100 and something days. The World Cup, Mexico is one of the host countries. Yes, 108, I think. Yes, it was with the involvement, not with the involvement. Well, yes, the US was providing intelligence there. Some of it was because of Trump's pressure, to put pressure on the cartel. Well, we can state this fact. In Mexico, this has been going on for decades, and they can't do anything about it, just like in Colombia. I mean, there are some successes, but overall, it's clear what they can do. Everything was literally on fire, in smoke. Yesterday, it was a nightmare. All these videos. This is a good signal for Ukraine. This is a good signal for Ukraine. If you allow this and accept it, then basically it could be forever. We also had a report the other day that drug labs have been caught and exposed. Yes, you know, it's always under the protection of law enforcement, special services in our countries, and that's a whole different scale. We're discussing tens of billions of dollars and hundreds of billions for the Mexican cartels. But there's a theory that when Pablo reached the level where he was really getting in the way, the same thing happened. There was a change. But the cartels are new now, they're different. The same thing could happen in Mexico when it reaches a limit, but nothing will really change, because if they really wanted to get rid of drug trafficking, they would have done it. But this business just keeps going. So it could happen that there will be a change, a bit of quiet, but the flows will stay the same. Maybe they'll just replace them with more reasonable people who won't so blatantly do what the US doesn't like. The story with the call centers. Denis, honestly, what do you think? Is it some kind of prank or a real situation? Please clarify, because there are several theories, but one theory is about Bali Island. In the case with the two guys and this call center, that it was an organized and well-planned operation, not the way it's being presented in the media. And also the silence from the authorities. I have certain thoughts about this, but honestly, I don't want to get involved in something that's not my business. Regarding call centers, I can only say separately that everyone already knows how it works. Everyone already knows how it works. You can't organize a call center without the help of law enforcement, different groups, and criminals. If this is thriving in Ukraine, then it's just like with Mexico. The government is basically saying, okay, it's working with the right hand and the left hand. Draft dodgers are blamed for everything. There are right draft dodgers in call centers and wrong draft dodgers elsewhere. If you even dare to speak out against the authorities, if you don't like something, then you're just a traitor. But you're a patriot when you say we're at war, so let's have things in our country be like they are in Mexico. Multiply it by 10, for example, that's a patriotic position. But when you say let's make a normal, rich, powerful country, you suggest that and you're for ending the war. It's really simple because common sense already shows all of this. You're a traitor. So what is this? Some kind of mirror world? And to conclude, Denis, your vision for this year, the anniversary of the start of the war, peaceful. How can a peaceful settlement happen according to the current scenario? By signing a framework agreement and immediately holding elections and a referendum. Then this will be kind of the beginning of implementing the roadmap according to which Ukraine will have to do a lot more things. And then everything will depend on the next government, on the people, on what they will want. I believe in peace in 2026. I just clearly understand that if Ukraine continues to fight in the fall and beyond, then we will no longer be able to restore the vast majority of processes. Society will be so divided that we won't be able to put it back together. We just won't. The casualties will be such that it will simply people will lose faith, after which completely. The demographic situation today is recognized as the worst in world history. In Ukraine, what's happening, the economy, we've been bankrupt for a long time. What is there even to talk about? Most importantly, no one counts the daily deaths or growing number of prisoners. Everyone knows what Russian captivity is like. Somehow nobody cares about people at all. It's just about people and about tomorrow. Nobody cares. They just need it. Today we're in power. We're stealing. War is business. Wonderful. And all of this is under the same pretense. Like Putin is bad, so we don't talk about anything else, as if someone comes out and says Putin is good. But no, but covering everything up with Putin, sorry, tomorrow marks the start of the 5th year of war. It's just unimaginable. But everything has already been allowed. You said that you can take a person, sign a contract with them, and put them forward as a candidate. Is there a possibility, and how much time would a hypothetical candidate from the Peace Party need to gain momentum and have people vote for them? I know that other guests on your channel divide things into the Peace Party and the War Party. I don't belong to either camp because in reality, it's just the We Want Power Party or the We Want Power Party, that's all. Yes, probably in the Peace Party that you're talking about, many people there really do understand, aside from their own personal political interests, that this isn't the way to do things. I'm outside of these parties. I don't want to divide people. Next, we need common sense in Ukraine to promote a candidate. As you said, it takes a full 6 months, but that's 6 months of open media coverage without political pressure or any other security concerns. To guarantee this takes 6 months, truly, if we're starting from scratch, or even 9 months, 6 to 9 months, then it turns out it's unrealistic for us to do it in this cycle. It will be fully, most likely, yes. So that means an intermediate option. Dennis, thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you.